This video explores the most unconventional goaltenders in NHL history. Netminders are defied traditional techniques to develop their own unique methods. From unusual equipment modifications to bizarre pregame rituals and save techniques, these 10 goalies prove that breaking the rules can sometimes be the key to stopping the puck. Honorable mentions. While our top 10 features the most memorably unorthodox netminders in NHL history, several other goalies deserve recognition for their unique approaches. Felix Potvin's cat-like reflexes and dramatic splits earned him the nickname the Cat and made him a fan favorite in Toronto. Martin Brodeur, while technically sound, broke convention by rarely using the butterfly despite playing an era when it dominated. His hybrid style and exceptional puck-handling abilities influenced rule changes, similar to Hextall. Mike Smith continued the tradition of goaltenders as playmakers, becoming known for his aggressive puck handling and even scoring a goal himself. Yevgeny Nabokov combined Russian and North American techniques into a distinctive hybrid approach that featured unusually quick recoveries. Rogie Vachon compensated for his small 5 feet 8 inches frame with exceptional quickness and a willingness to challenge shooters far outside his crease. Dominic Roussel pioneered the use of oversized equipment, pushing the boundaries of what was allowed by the NHL until rule changes were implemented to limit goalie gear. Pete Peters developed one of hockey's most unusual pregame routines, meticulously arranging and rearranging his equipment in precise patterns before each game. And though his NHL career was brief, Manon Rhéaume broke the most significant convention of all as the first and only woman to play in an NHL game, appearing in exhibition games for Tampa Bay with a technical butterfly style. Evolution of goaltending equipment. The development of goaltending equipment has played a crucial role in enabling many of the unorthodox styles featured in our countdown. When Jacques Plante first donned his mask in 1959, he faced ridicule, yet this innovation eventually became universal and evolved into the specialized face protection all goalies wear today. Masks themselves became canvases for personal expression, with Gerry Cheevers' stitch-marked mask representing just the beginning of a tradition that continues in modern goaltending. Pad technology underwent similar revolutionary changes. Glenn Hall and Tony Esposito pioneered techniques that would eventually lead to butterfly-style goaltending, but it wasn't until the 1980s and 90s when equipment evolved to properly support these movements. Patrick Roy's collaboration with equipment manufacturers led to revolutionary pad designs specifically built for butterfly techniques, with wider, flatter pads that seal the ice better than traditional equipment. The cheater expansion on catching gloves, the trapezoid rule limiting where goalies could play the puck, the response to the skill of netminders like Brodeur and Hextall, and the various NHL equipment size restrictions all represent regulatory responses to goaltenders finding creative advantages through equipment. Many of our top 10 goalies were at the forefront of these equipment innovations, either adapting existing gear to suit their unique styles or working with manufacturers to develop entirely new designs. While today's stringent equipment regulations have standardized much of what goalies wear, the impact of these pioneering netminders remains evident. From Plante's mask to Irbe's self-repaired pads and Cheevers' psychological intimidation through equipment modification, these unorthodox goalies demonstrated that equipment innovation could be just as important as technical skill. Number 10. Dominic Hasek, the flopping octopus. Dominic Hasek stands as perhaps the most unconventional elite goaltender in NHL history. While most goalies of his era were adopting the butterfly style, Hasek developed a technique that defied categorization. The Czech netminder would routinely flop, roll, and contort his body in ways that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. Nicknamed the Dominator, Hasek's style looked like organized chaos. He would stack his pads horizontally, make saves while lying on his side, and use every part of his equipment, including the back of his glove. Hasek's unusual approach emerged from exceptional flexibility and a brilliant hockey mind. He tracked the puck with remarkable precision, allowing him to make desperation saves look routine. What appeared to be random flailing was actually a calculated abandonment of technique in favor of simply stopping the puck by any means necessary. This unorthodox style frustrated shooters who couldn't predict where openings would appear in his seemingly random movements. During his prime with the Buffalo Sabres and Detroit Red Wings, Hasek collected 6 Vezina trophies as the NHL's best goaltender and 2 Hart trophies as league MVP, a rare achievement for a goalie. His highlight reels feature saves that other goalies wouldn't even attempt, including his famous rollover technique where he would tumble onto his back while keeping his stick and glove position to make saves. Goalie coaches still debate whether Hasek succeeded because of his unorthodox style or despite it. What's undeniable is that his willingness to abandon traditional technique changed how people thought about goaltending. While few goalies have successfully copied his methods, Hasek proved that unconventional approaches could reach the highest levels of success in the NHL. Number 9. Tim Thomas, the Battlefly. Tim Thomas emerged as an NHL star relatively late in his career, and he did it with a style that defied modern goaltending conventions. While most goalies of the 2000s relied on the standard butterfly technique with precise movements and positioning, Thomas developed what some coaches call the Battlefly, a hybrid approach that combined elements of butterfly goaltending with aggressive, sometimes reckless challenging as shooters. Unlike most modern goalies who stay deep in their crease to maintain positioning, Thomas would charge out to cut down angles, dive across the crease, and make dramatic lunging saves that often left him well outside the blue paint. His unconventional approach included an unusually wide stance, a hunched-over posture, and a willingness to abandon textbook save selection in favor of whatever worked in the moment. Thomas's unorthodox style reached its peak during the 2010 to 2011 season with the Boston Bruins. That year, he posted a modern-era record .938 save percentage, won the Vezina Trophy, and then carried the Bruins to a Stanley Cup championship with one of the most dominant playoff performances in goaltending history. Throughout the Cup run, commentators noted how Thomas's aggressive positioning and spectacular saves repeatedly frustrated Vancouver shooters. What made Thomas's approach especially unusual was that it emerged after decades of standardization in goaltending. By the time he won his Stanley Cup at age 37, nearly every NHL goalie followed similar technical principles. Thomas showed that even in the modern era, there was still room for goalies who trusted their instincts and reflexes over rigid adherence to technique. His willingness to take risks and make unorthodox saves reminded fans that goaltending remains as much art as science. Number 8. Nikolai Khabibulin, the Bulin Wall. Nikolai Khabibulin earned his nickname, the Bulin Wall, through a unique hybrid style that blended old Soviet goaltending techniques with modern NHL approaches. Unlike most North American goalies in the 1990s and 2000s who were fully committed to butterfly techniques, Khabibulin maintained elements of the stand-up style popular in Russia. This created a distinctive approach that often left shooters guessing which technique he would employ in any given situation. What made Khabibulin's style particularly unorthodox was his unusual stance and save selection. He would often maintain a more upright posture than his contemporaries, only dropping to the butterfly when absolutely necessary. His glove position was notably higher than most NHL goalies, a carryover from his Russian training. Perhaps most distinctive was his unusual side-to-side movement instead of the smooth pushes most goalies use. Khabibulin sometimes employed a staggered, almost stuttering lateral movement that disrupted shooters' timing. Khabibulin's hybrid approach reached its pinnacle during the 2003 to 2004 season when he backstopped the Tampa Bay Lightning to their first Stanley Cup championship. Throughout that playoff run, his calm demeanor and unpredictable style frustrated opposing forwards. Analysts noted how his ability to alternate between butterfly and stand-up techniques made him especially effective in high-pressure situations where shooters had little time to read his positioning. The Russian netminder's career spanned a transitional period in NHL goaltending when the butterfly style was becoming nearly universal. His success with a hybrid approach demonstrated that there was still value in incorporating elements from earlier goaltending eras. While Khabibulin wasn't as overtly unorthodox as someone like Hasek, his willingness to blend techniques from different goaltending traditions created a style that was distinctly his own and difficult for shooters to solve. Number 7. Ilya Bryzgalov, the Cosmonaut. Ilya Bryzgalov makes this list not primarily for his physical technique, which was more conventional than others in our countdown, but for his utterly unique mental approach to goaltending. The Russian netminder combined solid butterfly fundamentals with one of the most eccentric personalities ever seen in an NHL crease. His unconventional thinking manifested his playing style through an unusual calmness under pressure and unpredictable decision-making that often caught shooters off guard. Bryzgalov's technique featured several subtle but significant departures from standard goaltending practices. He played unusually deep in his crease compared to most of his contemporaries, relying more on reaction time than aggressive positioning. His glove hand was notably relaxed and often held lower than textbook position. Perhaps most distinctively, Bryzgalov would sometimes appear almost disinterested in routine shots before making lightning-quick reflex saves that seemed to come out of nowhere. The Russian goaltender's peak came during the 2009 to 2010 season with the Phoenix Coyotes, when he posted 42 wins and finished as a Vezina Trophy finalist. Throughout his career with Anaheim, Phoenix, and Philadelphia, Bryzgalov demonstrated flashes of brilliance interspersed with periods of inconsistency that reflected his unconventional approach to the game. He could appear unbeatable for stretches, stopping everything with remarkable remarkable efficiency before unexpected lapses that seemed to stem from his unique mental approach. What truly set Bryzgalov apart was how his philosophical, sometimes otherworldly perspective influenced his goaltending. While other goalies focus intensely on technique, Bryzgalov famously pondered the universe and human existence. This uncommon mindset translated to a playing style where he seemed unbothered by goals against and maintained the same demeanor regardless of the game situation. In a position notorious for psychological intensity, Bryzgalov's ability to maintain cosmic detachment represented perhaps the most unorthodox mental approach to goaltending in NHL history. Number 6. Ron Hextall, the Slasher. Ron Hextall revolutionized goaltending not through unconventional save tech, but by expanding the very definition of what a goalie could do on the ice. The Philadelphia Flyers netminder played with a level of aggression and offensive involvement that had never been seen before. While his butterfly technique was fairly standard for his era, Hextall's willingness to venture far from his crease, handle the puck like a defenseman, and physically confront opposing players created an entirely new goaltending archetype. Hextall's most obvious departure from convention was his unprecedented puck handling ability. Unlike previous goalies who would cautiously stop pucks behind net, Hextall actively looked to play the puck, making crisp passes to teammates and even attempting to score. This aggressive approach to puck handling fundamentally changed how teams forecheck and forced opponents to adjust their dump-in strategies. Hextall became the first NHL goalie to score a goal by shooting the puck into the opposing net, a feat that perfectly symbolized his revolutionary approach. Beyond his puck skills, Hextall's combative style made him uniquely intimidating. He regularly used his stick, blocker, and glove to deliver slashes and punches to opponents who entered his crease. This aggressive approach to defending his territory resulted in numerous penalties and suspensions, but also created a psychological advantage as forward became hesitant to challenge him directly. His infamous slash on Edmonton's Kent Nielsen during the 1987 Stanley Cup Finals exemplified his willingness to defend his crease at all costs. Hextall's unorthodox approach earned him the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP in 1987 despite Philadelphia losing in the finals, a rare honor for a player on the losing team. His willingness to redefine the goaltender position influenced a generation of netminders who followed him. While modern goaltending instruction has become more standardized, Hextall demonstrated that innovation could come not just in how goalies stop puck, but in how they influence the entire game around them. His legacy lives on in the NHL's Hextall rule, which restricts goaltenders from handling the puck in certain areas, a rule change made specifically in response to his revolutionary style. Number 5. Arturs Irbe, the Latvian Wall. Arturs Irbe defied conventional goaltending wisdom through his remarkably small stature and unique equipment choices. Standing just 5 feet 8 inches in an era when NHL teams were increasingly seeking larger goaltenders, the Latvian netminder developed techniques that maximized his quickness while compensating for his lack of size. What truly set Irbe apart, however, was his obsessive attachment to his goaltending equipment, which he maintained himself and used well beyond its typical lifespan. Unlike most NHL goalies who regularly receive new gear, Irbe famously used the same pads, glove, blocker, and chest protector for nearly his entire career. His equipment became so worn and discolored that it appeared to be from a different era entirely. Irbe would personally repair his gear using needle and thread after games, claiming that new equipment never felt right. This unusual approach created a distinctive visual appearance that complemented his unorthodox playing style and earned him the nickname the Latvian Wall. Irbe's technique featured an extremely low, wide stance that compensated for his height disadvantage. He relied on exceptional lateral movement and reflexes rather than the positional blocking approach becoming standard among larger goalies of his era. His scrambling style included frequent poke checks, splits, and rapid recoveries that allowed him to make spectacular saves despite giving up significant size to most NHL shooters. During rushes, Irbe would often challenge shooters more aggressively than his contemporaries, cutting down angles to compensate for his smaller frame. The pinnacle of Irbe's unusual career came during the 2001 to 2002 season when he backstopped the Carolina Hurricanes to their first Stanley Cup Finals appearance. Throughout that playoff run, commentators frequently noted the contrast between Irbe's weathered equipment and unconventional style against the more modern approaches of other goaltenders. While the Hurricanes ultimately lost to Detroit, Irbe's performance demonstrated how an unorthodox approach could succeed at the highest level. His career served as a reminder that in goaltending, technique and equipment should serve the individual rather than following rigid conventions. Number 4. Gerry Cheevers, the Stitchman. Gerry Cheevers stands as one of hockey's true characters and a revolutionary figure in goaltending psychology. While his fundamental playing style wasn't radically different from his contemporaries in the 1960s and 70s, Cheevers introduced perhaps the most iconic and intimidating visual element in goaltending history, his famous stitch mask. The Boston Bruins netminder would draw stitches on his white fiberglass mask every time a puck struck it, creating an increasingly menacing appearance that symbolized his toughness and unorthodox approach to the position. Beyond his mask, Cheevers developed a playing style that emphasized positioning and anticipation over reflexes. Unlike many of his contemporaries who relied primarily on reaction saves, Cheevers often seemed to know where shots were going before they were released. This uncanny ability to read plays allowed him to play a more economical style than most goalies of his era. Cheevers was notorious for rarely going down to make saves, instead remaining upright and relying on his position to force shooters into taking less dangerous shots. What made Cheevers particularly unusual was his unconventional approach to practice. He famously disliked practice sessions and would occasionally fake injuries to avoid them. This apparent lack of dedication to traditional preparation methods ran counter to conventional wisdom. Yet Cheevers consistently delivered in games when it mattered most. His relaxed demeanor and psychological approach to goaltending proved especially effective in high-pressure playoff situations, helping the Bruins win 2 Stanley Cups during his tenure. Cheevers' pioneering approach to the mental aspects of goaltending influenced generations of netminders who followed. His stitch mask, which now resides in the Hockey Hall of Fame, was one of the first examples of a goalie using equipment not just for protection, but for psychological impact. The visual intimidation factor of his mask complemented his unflappable playing style and helped establish the tradition of goalie masks as expressions of personality. While modern goalies have adopted more technically refined approaches, Cheevers demonstrated that sometimes the most unorthodox element of goaltending happens above the shoulders rather than below them. Number 3. Patrick Roy, the butterfly pioneer. Patrick Roy earns his place among the most unorthodox goalies not because his technique appeared strange, quite the opposite, but because he completely revolutionized the position by perfecting and popularizing the butterfly style that now dominates modern goaltending. When Roy emerged in the mid-1980s, most NHL goalies still use hybrid or stand-up techniques. Roy's commitment to dropping to his knees with his pads flared out to cover the bottom of the net on nearly every shot was initially viewed as radical and risky, but his success forced the entire hockey world to reconsider fundamental goaltending principles. What made Roy's approach truly unorthodox was his complete abandonment of conventional wisdom about staying on your feet. Previous generations of goaltending coaches had taught that dropping to the ice should be a last resort, but Roy made it his primary save selection. He combined his revolutionary technical approach with exceptional athleticism and reflexes, allowing him to recover quickly when shooters tried to exploit his low positioning. His butterfly stance was complemented by an unusually aggressive positioning style, often challenging shooters well outside his crease. Beyond his technical innovation, Roy brought unprecedented intensity and confidence to goaltending. His famous wink to Tomas Sandstrom after making a save during the 1993 playoffs exemplified his psychological approach to the position. Roy talked to his goalposts, developed elaborate pre-game rituals, and displayed a level of self-assurance that bordered on arrogance. This mental approach complemented his technical style, creating an aura of invincibility that became particularly evident during playoff runs. Roy's 4 Stanley Cups and 3 Conn Smythe trophies as playoff MVP validated his unorthodox approach and led to its widespread adoption. What started as a radical departure from goaltending norms became the foundation for modern techniques. Every youth goalie now learns a butterfly as a fundamental save technique, making Roy perhaps the most influential goaltender in hockey history. While his style no longer looks unusual to modern eyes, its revolutionary impact earns him a place among the most unorthodox and innovative netminders the game has seen. Number 2. Glenn Hall, the original innovator. Glenn Hall holds a special place in hockey history as perhaps the most innovative goaltender of all time. Nicknamed Mr. Goalie, Hall pioneered techniques that would later become standard, but in his era appeared utterly radical. Most famously, Hall developed the first primitive version of what would later evolve into butterfly technique. In an era when goalies were strictly taught to stay on their feet, Hall regularly dropped to his knees to stop low shots, spreading his legs to cover more than net, a revolutionary concept that predated Patrick Roy's refined butterfly by decades. What made Hall's approach especially unorthodox was his devotion to this technique despite facing ridicule from coaches and peers. Goaltending conventional wisdom in the 1950s and 60s dictated that netminders should remain standing, yet Hall consistently defied these teachings. His pre-game preparation was equally unusual. Hall was famous for being physically ill before almost every game of his career. This nervous reaction became such a routine part of his preparation that teammates saw it as a necessary ritual, with Hall claiming it helped him achieve achieve the right mental state for competition. Hall's durability and consistency represented another departure from conventional approaches to the position. He set an NHL record by playing 502 consecutive complete games between 1955 and 1962, a feat made even more remarkable by the fact he played without a mask for most of this streak. This Ironman achievement reflected his uniquely stoic approach to the physical challenges of goaltending. While other goalies might demand rest or substitution after injuries, Hall played through countless cuts, bruises, and more serious injuries without complaint. The longevity of Hall's career, 21 NHL seasons, and his consistent excellence, 3 Vezina trophies and 13 All-Star selections, validated his unorthodox methods. What started as techniques that coaches attempted to correct became fundamental approaches that influenced generations of goaltenders who followed. Hall's willingness to challenge conventional wisdom about goaltending in an era with little tolerance for innovation makes him perhaps the most daringly unorthodox netminder relative to his time period. His innovations, once considered bizarre departures from accepted technique, now form the foundation of modern goaltending. Number 1. Jacques Plante, the unmasked revolutionary. Jacques Plante tops our list of unorthodox goaltenders not merely for his technical innovations, but for his complete willingness to ignore convention in the pursuit of stopping pucks. Plante's most famous act of nonconformity came on November 1st, 1959, when he became the first modern goaltender to wear a mask in regular NHL competition. After suffering a facial injury, Plante refused to return to the ice without facial protection, defying the hockey establishment's long-standing belief that masks were signs of cowardice. This single act of rebellion fundamentally changed the position forever, though at the time it was viewed as peculiar and even controversial. Beyond the mask, Plante's playing style featured numerous departures from goaltending orthodoxy. While his contemporaries focused exclusively on stopping shots, Plante treated himself as a third defenseman, regularly leaving his crease to play the puck and start breakouts. This approach was considered reckless by coaching standards of the 1950s, yet Plante persisted in handling the puck extensively throughout his career. He also pioneered an early form of the butterfly style before it had a name, dropping to his knees to take away the bottom of the net at a time when stand-up goaltending was the established norm. Perhaps most unusual was Plante's obsession with studying shooters and developing analytical approaches to the position. He kept detailed notes on opponents' tendencies, preferred shooting locations, and pattern recognition at a time when goaltending was considered purely instinctual. Plante approached the position with the mind of a chess player, thinking several moves ahead rather than simply reacting to shots. This cerebral approach extended to equipment innovations. He designed and knitted his own special undergarments to wear beneath his goalie equipment, believing they improved his performance. Plante's 7 Vezina trophies and 6 Stanley Cups were the Montreal Canadiens' silent critics of his unconventional methods. His influence extended far beyond his playing career, as he authored goaltending instruction books that formalized many of his innovative techniques. In an era when goalies were expected to simply stand in front of the net and stop pucks, Plante reimagined the entire position, establishing the modern concept of the goaltender as an independent-thinking athlete with a specialized role. His complete disregard for established conventions makes him the most unorthodox and ultimately the most influential goaltender in hockey history. The evolution of goaltending in hockey reveals a fascinating truth. What begins as unorthodox often becomes conventional. From Jacques Plante's mask to Patrick Roy's butterfly technique, innovations that were once considered radical departures from accepted practice eventually became fundamental aspects of the position. These 10 netminders represent more than just unusual styles. They embody hockey's tradition of innovation through nonconformity. What unites these goalies is their willingness to trust their own instincts over established wisdom. Whether it was Dominik Hasek flopping like an acrobat, Ron Hextall handling the puck like a third defenseman, or Ilya Bryzgalov contemplating the universe between saves, each found success by developing techniques that suited their unique physical and mental attributes. Their approaches may have looked strange, but results validated their methods through Stanley Cups, Vezina trophies, and Hall of Fame careers. Today's goalies continue this tradition in more subtle ways. While standardized coaching has created more technical uniformity, elements of unorthodox play still emerge through distinctive styles and mental approaches. Perhaps the lesson from these 10 Mavericks is that while fundamentals matter, true excellence often requires some willingness to color outside the lines. In the high-pressure world of NHL goaltending, sometimes breaking the rules becomes the surest path to stopping the puck. Irbe part, however, was his obsessive attachment to his goaltending equipment, which he maintained himself and used well beyond its typical lifespan. Unlike most NHL goalies who regularly receive new gear, Irbe famously used the same pads, glove, blocker, and chest protector for nearly his entire career. His equipment became so worn and discolored that it appeared to be from a different era entirely. Irbe would personally repair his gear using needle and thread after games, claiming that new equipment never felt right. This unusual approach created a distinctive visual appearance that complemented his unorthodox playing style and earned him the nickname the Latvian Wall. Irbe's technique featured an extremely low, wide stance that compensated for his height disadvantage. He relied on exceptional lateral movement and reflexes rather than the positional blocking approach becoming standard among larger goalies of his era. His scrambling style included frequent poke checks, splits, and rapid recoveries that allowed him to make spectacular saves despite giving up significant size to most NHL shooters. During rushes, Irbe would often challenge shooters more aggressively than his contemporaries, cutting down angles to compensate for his smaller frame. The pinnacle of Irbe's unusual career came during the 2001 to 2002 season when he backstopped the Carolina Hurricanes to their first Stanley Cup Finals appearance. Throughout that playoff run, commentators frequently noted the contrast between Irbe's weathered equipment and unconventional style against the more modern approaches of other goaltenders. While the Hurricanes ultimately lost to Detroit, Irbe's performance demonstrated how an unorthodox approach could succeed at the highest level. His career served as a reminder that in goaltending, technique and equipment should serve the individual rather than following rigid conventions.